As the stage lights shone brightly and vibrant music echoed, Michael looked at Isabella, his expression reflecting a mix of love and despair. The moment the judge asked the question that could change everything, a shadow of betrayal loomed over the event, and Michael knew that tonight, it wasn't just the competition at stake, it was the heart of a woman. Michael Walker stared at his reflection in the public restroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. The scruffy beard, disheveled hair, and worn-out baseball cap gave him the look of a man who had long abandoned worldly cares. His clothes, a pair of grease-stained and dusty pants and a tattered t-shirt, completed the transformation. No one would ever guess that the man who now looked like just another face among the homeless, wandering the streets, was, in reality, one of the most powerful businessmen in the United States. He took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. His plan was bold, but necessary. After years of shallow relationships driven by money and hollow appearances, Michael had decided he needed a new approach to find what he most desired: true love. And the path he chose was unconventional. Disguised as a beggar, he would infiltrate the country's most prestigious beauty pageant, not as a judge or sponsor, but as a backstage volunteer. There, hidden under the identity of an ordinary man, he would observe the contestants in their true essence, away from the cameras and glamour, and perhaps find someone who could see beyond appearances. With each step he took down the street toward the luxurious seaside resort where the pageant would be held, Michael felt the tension building. He wasn't sure how he would be treated or if he could keep up the disguise. The plan had been carefully orchestrated in secret with his best friend, Edward, who supported him despite being skeptical. Edward, a meticulous lawyer, was the only person who knew the true identity of the beggar. The success of this plan hinged on Michael remaining unrecognizable throughout the competition. Arriving at the resort, the contrast was stark. The luxury of palm trees, the infinity pool, and the blue sea in the background seemed like a cruel joke compared to his filthy, ragged outfit. He approached the employee entrance where he was to pick up his credentials as a volunteer. The doorman looked him up and down with disdain, as if questioning the presence of this stranger. "Can I help you?" The man's voice was harsh, almost impatient. "I'm here for volunteer work. I was called to help with the event," Michael replied, with a firmness that tried to mask his discomfort. The doorman checked a list and waved him through with a vague gesture. The first hurdle was overcome. Upon entering the resort's backstage, he was led to a room where other volunteers were preparing for the event. The atmosphere was simple, without the glitz and glamour of the main hall where the competition would take place. Here, Michael blended in with men and women of various ages and backgrounds, all ready to carry out the most basic tasks, like setting up chairs, carrying boxes, and serving drinks. And that was when he saw her for the first time. Isabella Rivera, one of the contestants, was sitting alone in a corner, waiting her turn to be called for the stage prep. She wasn't like the others Michael had seen so far. There was a serenity in her posture, a humility that immediately set her apart from the rest. Dressed in simple clothes, without flashy accessories or the arrogant demeanor of many competitors, Isabella seemed lost in that world of ostentation. Curiosity overtook him. As he passed by her, pretending to arrange some chairs, their eyes met. He noticed that she didn't look at him with disdain, nor did she ignore him like many did to those they deemed beneath them. On the contrary, Isabella smiled kindly, and that small gesture made something stir deep in Michael's chest. "Need help with that?" she asked, pointing to the chairs he was adjusting. Michael hesitated for a moment. It was rare for someone to even notice his presence in this new disguise, much less offer to help. He shook his head in refusal, but his awkward smile betrayed the impact of that simple offer. "No, thanks. I think I've got it," he replied, trying to hide his unease. "Are you sure?" she insisted. "You look tired." Michael chuckled lightly, something he hadn't done in social interactions for some time. Isabella's lightness contrasted sharply with the competitive atmosphere surrounding them. She didn't seem focused on standing out or impressing everyone like the other contestants. Instead, she exuded a calmness that intrigued him more and more. "I'm fine," Michael replied, "but it's rare to see someone willing to help around here." She shrugged. "I think we're all here trying for something." Just because we're competing doesn't mean we should forget that we're people, right? Her words echoed in his mind. She was so different from the women he had known throughout his life, especially in the high society circles where he lived, surrounded by luxury and ulterior motives. Michael knew this was just the beginning, but something told him that Isabella would play a bigger role than he had imagined in this pageant. In the days that followed, Michael kept his disguise, observing the contestants from a distance, especially Isabella and Bruna Taylor, the favorite to win. Bruna, with her stunning beauty and calculated charm, was the opposite of Isabella. Where Isabella was discreet and humble, Bruna was ambitious and made sure to be the center of attention. Michael saw her repeatedly ignore the workers and volunteers, passing them as if they were invisible. To Bruna, everything seemed to be about power and status. The night before the big fashion show, the event hosted a gala dinner where the contestants had the chance to impress not only the judges, but also influential businessmen sponsoring the pageant. Michael, still disguised as a volunteer, was tasked with serving drinks. It was the perfect opportunity to continue his discreet observations. As he circled the room with a tray in hand, he accidentally approached a table where Bruna was talking with a small group of other contestants. What he heard shocked him. Michael paused for a moment, keeping the tray steady as he continued to eavesdrop on Bruna. The room buzzed with animated conversations and laughter, but he could only focus on the words coming from that table. Bruna didn't speak loudly, but with enough confidence that the other women around her listened intently. "The important thing is to capture the attention of those who really matter," she whispered, casting a discreet glance at a group of businessmen nearby. "Winning or not, the real goal is leaving here with valuable contacts." Bruna smiled smugly, and the other contestants nodded in agreement. Michael felt a pang of disgust. It was precisely this kind of mentality he had faced throughout his life, the belief that everything could be bought, even love. Bruna wasn't there for the victory, beauty, or talent. She was there purely out of self-interest, to increase her chances of climbing the social and financial ladder. For her, the pageant was just a showcase, a stage for her ambitions. But what she said next made Michael hold his breath. "And let's not forget the plan with the businessmen," Bruna continued, throwing a conspiratorial glance at her accomplices. "If we play our cards right, we could walk away with a lot more than just a trophy." Michael forced his mind to process what he had just heard. A plan with businessmen. What were Bruna and the other contestants plotting? He tried to maintain his composure as he passed near the table, offering drinks casually, but curiosity burned in his chest. The women accepted the champagne flutes without even glancing at him. Michael was used to being invisible in his new appearance, but now his invisibility was his greatest weapon. He continued to listen as Bruna laughed, her mischievous smile lighting up her face. "Some men here are so easy to manipulate," she commented, her eyes glinting with malice. "All we need to do is show a little interest, and in return they'll do anything for us." The other contestants laughed in agreement, but Michael couldn't listen any longer. His blood ran hot in his veins. He didn't know exactly what Bruna was planning, but he knew it involved influential men and manipulation. It was everything he had learned to avoid in his personal life. And now, here, disguised as a beggar, he had the chance to see it all up close. Each passing day increased his disdain for Bruna. The conversations he overheard only confirmed his suspicions. She treated the businessmen like easy prey, making sure to flirt and grab their attention while her accomplices did the same. Meanwhile, Michael noticed that Isabella's behavior remained consistent. She wasn't there to manipulate anyone. Her motives were clear: to help her sick mother and try to change her destiny honestly. The sun had already begun to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, while the luxurious resort buzzed with activity. It was the night of the grand fashion show, the climax of the pageant. The main hall was prepared with all the splendor imaginable. Crystal chandeliers, tables adorned with flawless floral arrangements, and influential businessmen scattered among the audience. The judges, composed of celebrities and fashion moguls, were seated at the front of the stage, where the contestants would soon make their final presentations. Michael watched everything from a distance, still in his beggar disguise. The tension in his chest was palpable. The truth was about to be revealed, Edward was ready, poised to intervene if Bruna's plan advanced further than anticipated. But for Michael, the most difficult moment would be revealing his true identity to Isabella. He knew this could change everything. He had spent weeks interacting with her, exchanging few words but always capturing the essence of who Isabella really was. Yet she knew him as an ordinary man, a humble volunteer. How would she react when she discovered that he was actually the owner of this entire empire? Worse still, how would she cope with the fact that he had hidden this from her for so long? Michael took a deep breath and made his decision. He needed to be honest with her before the show began, and everything was exposed publicly. With determined steps, he left the backstage area and headed toward the dressing room where the contestants were preparing. The sound of nervous laughter and chatter escaped from the partially open doors, but he was focused on one person. Entering the dressing room, he spotted Isabella in front of the mirror, adjusting her simple yet elegant dress. She looked beautiful, but unlike the others, she didn't seem concerned with impressing anyone with her appearance. There was a calmness about her that contrasted with the anxiety around her. "Isabella, can I talk to you for a moment?" Michael asked, his voice firmer than he expected. She turned, surprised, but smiled when she saw him. He was one of the few people she felt comfortable with there. Although she didn't fully understand why, Michael always made her feel more centered, less lost in that world of appearances. "Of course. What is it?" she asked, curious. Michael hesitated for a moment, glancing around to ensure they were alone. The other contestants were busy with their preparations, so he took a deep breath and decided it was the right moment. "Do I need to tell you something important?" he began, nervous. "Something that might change the way you see me?" Isabella furrowed her brow, intrigued. The seriousness in his face was unusual, and it made her a bit worried. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice now softer, almost as if she already knew she was about to hear something big. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not who you think I am. I mean, I am Khan, but not exactly in the way you imagine. I approached you and the other contestants, disguised as a volunteer, but the truth is that I own this resort, and more than that, I'm Michael Walker." Isabella blinked a few times, confused. The name Michael Walker sounded familiar, but she couldn't immediately connect it to the man standing before her. "Sorry, Michael Walker?" she asked, trying to understand. "Yes," he confirmed, exhaling with a mix of relief and nervousness. "The billionaire, the owner of Walker Resorts. This pageant, this whole event, is actually taking place on my properties, and He paused, trying to organize his thoughts. "I disguised myself to discover the truth about the contestants, about how they would treat someone who has nothing to offer, and that's how I came to meet you." The silence that followed was heavy. Isabella looked at him, processing everything she had just heard. Michael Walker, the hotel magnate. She had heard of him, of course, but never in a million years would she have thought that the man she had spoken with so many times, the one who seemed so genuine, that he was actually Michael. "So, you lied this whole time?" Isabella's voice was low, and the pain in her question hit Michael like a knife. "It wasn't a lie, Isabella," he quickly responded. "I disguised myself, yes, but what I felt and what I showed you was real. I needed a way to find out who the people around me truly were, without the weight of my name and fortune. And of all the people, you were the only one who treated me with respect, who cared, even without knowing who I was." Isabella stayed silent for a while, trying to organize her thoughts. There was a mix of emotions within her: surprise, disappointment, maybe even a bit of anger. Everything she thought about him, everything she had felt, was now under question. "Do you understand what this means to me?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "You tested me. This is humiliating, Michael." "I know," he answered, his voice heavy with regret. "I understand how unfair this may have seemed, but please, believe me. I was lost, trying to find someone who could see me beyond my wealth, beyond everything that always attracted superficial interest. And you, Isabella, you were different." She shook her head, still confused. "I don't know what to say. This is too much to process right now, especially before the show." Isabella stepped back as if she needed space to breathe. Michael realized how much pressure he had put on her, how his words weighed on her at such a critical moment. "I don't want this to influence your decision about the pageant," he said, backing off slightly. "But I needed to be honest before everything was revealed publicly. I just want you to know that, no matter what happens, my feelings for you are real." Isabella looked at him for a long moment. There was truth in his eyes, of that she was sure. But the betrayal still burned in her chest. She didn't know if she could trust him again, didn't know if everything she had felt for him was real or an illusion created by the circumstances. "I need some time," she finally said, turning her back to him. "I need to think." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of her decision. He knew he had planted a huge doubt in Isabella's mind, and now there was no going back. With a heavy heart, he left the dressing room and returned backstage. The fashion show was about to start, but for the first time, he was no longer concerned with the competition itself. All that mattered now was how Isabella would deal with the truth, and whether she could forgive him. The loud, upbeat music echoed throughout the hall as the show began. Bright lights illuminated the stage, and one by one, the contestants walked confidently, each trying to capture the attention of the judges and the audience. However, for Michael, the excitement of the event had turned into a heavy burden. He was absorbed in his own thoughts, the revelation to Isabella still echoing in his mind. As he watched the contestants perform, his gaze kept drifting toward the dressing room where Isabella was preparing. He hoped to see her soon, but at the same time, her absence was a painful reminder of what he had ruined. The show went on, but he felt as if he were in a state of desolation, unable to enjoy what was happening around him. Bruna, with her irresistible charisma, was the last to walk in the first round. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew she had everything to gain, her posture exuding ambition. Michael observed how she interacted with the judges, winking and smiling, her attention firmly focused on each influential man present. "What do you think?" Edward appeared at his side, breaking the silence Michael had fallen into. "You seem distant." "I'm worried about Isabella," Michael responded, without taking his eyes off the stage. "The truth affected her more than I expected. And Bruna, she's doing exactly what I feared." Edward followed his friend's gaze and saw Bruna laughing and flirting with one of the most influential businessmen at the event. He shook his head in disapproval. "Oh, we need to keep an eye on her. If Bruna and her accomplices are planning something, it could ruin everything." Michael agreed, but his mind was far away. He needed to find a way to redeem himself, to show Isabella that his feelings were real. At the same time, he would need to prevent Bruna from using her malicious plans to manipulate the situation. As the show progressed, the tension increased. Each contestant had the chance to showcase not only their beauty, but also their skills and intentions. Michael, from his corner, watched closely, evaluating every move, every interaction. Finally, it was time for Isabella's presentation. When she appeared, a wave of emotions washed over Michael. Isabella was stunning, her simple dress highlighting her natural beauty and authentic demeanor. There was something so genuine about her performance. She walked with grace and confidence, making it clear that she was there for a greater purpose. Michael noticed that, unlike Bruna and other contestants, Isabella wasn't concerned with impressing the judges with rehearsed smiles or flirtations. She connected with the audience, her sincere gaze telling the story of her struggle and motivation. "She's amazing," Edward whispered, and Michael could only nod, his heart heavy. It was at that moment that he realized just how much she meant to him. When Isabella finished her presentation, the applause from the audience was thunderous. Michael felt a mix of pride and apprehension. He knew that, regardless of the result, Isabella had already achieved what truly mattered, her own integrity. However, as the fashion show reached its climax, Michael realized that he couldn't stand by any longer. The music shifted to a more intense rhythm, and it was the perfect moment to act. He needed to confront Bruna and make it clear that he wouldn't allow her deceptions to come to fruition. With determination, Michael left Edward's side and started walking toward the table where Bruna sat, surrounded by a few judges and businessmen. The atmosphere around her was electric, and Michael could feel the curious eyes turning toward him, but he didn't care. He had come too far to back down. "Bruna," he said, interrupting the conversation and drawing everyone's attention. "We need to talk." Bruna's expression quickly changed, her smile morphing into a mask of disdain. "Oh, the beggar," she mocked sarcastically. "What do you want, Michael?" "An autograph." Michael maintained his composure, ignoring the sarcasm. "I know about what you and the others are planning," he said firmly. "If you think you're going to manipulate the businessmen and use this pageant for your own interests, I won't let it happen." Michael felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders as he made his way to the dressing room. He needed to find Isabella before the pageant continued. The atmosphere around him was charged with tension, and he didn't want Bruna or any of her accomplices to have the chance to manipulate the situation further. Upon entering the dressing room, Michael found Isabella still standing in front of the mirror, her eyes glistening with confusion and concern. The expression on her face spoke volumes. She had heard the conversation, and now the doubts were clear in her mind. "Michael, Isabella began, but the words caught in her throat. He stepped closer, searching for a way to convey what he felt. "I know you must feel betrayed. I understand, but please, listen. What I did was to understand who you truly are, who all of you are, without the influence of my name or wealth. I didn't want you to feel like a pawn in a game. To me, you're so much more than that." Isabella crossed her arms, creating a barrier that he knew he needed to break down. "And I'm just a regular woman, Michael. You saw me as an experiment, as part of a plan. How can I trust that your feelings are genuine if you started all of this with a lie?" Michael felt his heart tighten. He needed to be honest and show Isabella that, despite his faults, what was happening now was real. "I understand that this is complicated, but I truly care about you. When I first saw you, it wasn't as a contestant, but as someone who brought me hope in a world full of appearances. You were the only one who treated me with dignity." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "The truth is, I don't want to lose you." The words seemed to hang in the air between them. Isabella said nothing for a moment, but her gaze softened. There was an internal conflict evident on her face, and Michael could see that she was wrestling with the pain of betrayal and the sincerity of his feelings. "The pageant is about to continue," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I need to decide what to do." "I'll be here for you no matter what decision you make," Michael assured her, feeling vulnerable. He wanted her to know that, regardless of the pageant's outcome, he was by her side. With one last look of understanding, Isabella left the dressing room, her presence lighting up the room, even amidst her emotional turmoil. Michael stood still for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. He knew that time was running out, and the show was about to begin again. The sound of applause and music returned, and Michael made his way back to the backstage area, where Edward was waiting with a worried expression. "So, what did she say?" Edward asked, anticipation clear in his eyes. "She's confused, but she still has a good heart. We need to make sure she knows she has support. Whatever happens with Bruna, we need to stop her from hurting anyone." "I agree. We'll keep an eye on her. If anything happens, we'll intervene." The show was entering its final phase, and the tension in the air was almost palpable. Michael watched as the contestants walked down the runway, and his focus was entirely on Isabella, who seemed more centered than ever. He realized that, even under all the pressure, she was staying true to herself. It was an act of bravery that few could exhibit in such a competitive environment. When the final round of voting approached, Michael watched as the judges deliberated and the contestants prepared for their final presentations. What should have been a moment of celebration was now tinged with uncertainty, especially with Bruna's plan looming over the event. Michael knew he needed to act quickly. As the lights dimmed and the judges prepared to announce the finalists, Michael felt he couldn't wait any longer. He approached the area where Bruna was sitting, engaged in a lively conversation with some businessmen, her uninhibited attitude contrasting with the nervousness he felt. "Bruna," he called, his voice cutting through the music. She turned in surprise, but the quick smile on her face soon transformed into a look of defiance. "What do you want, Michael?" she asked, crossing her arms. "This competition is about honor and integrity, and you're trying to manipulate it for your own benefit." He didn't hesitate. "That's not what this event is supposed to represent." Bruna cast a cold look at him. And what are you going to do about it? You're just a beggar. No one is going to believe you. It may not seem like it, but I have the power to expose everything. If you don't stop your schemes, I'll make sure everyone here knows who you really are and what you're doing." Murmurs spread through the table, and the judges and businessmen began to exchange glances, sensing the rising tension. "And how do you intend to stop me?" Bruna raised an eyebrow, but there was a glint of nervousness in her eyes. "I'm here to make sure everything is done the right way. This competition should be a celebration of talent and integrity, not a battlefield of manipulation and blackmail." He took a deep breath, trying not to let his anger show. "And if that means I need to expose what's happening here, I will." Bruna laughed, but the laugh lacked the confidence it had before. The judges and businessmen began murmuring, and Michael realized that he had caught everyone's attention. "You may think you have control over all this," he continued, staring at Bruna firmly, "but I'm here to protect the truth and the people who truly deserve to be in this competition." At that moment, he saw Isabella in the back of the hall, watching the scene with a look of shock and concern. Michael's heart clenched. He wanted Isabella to know that, despite his revelation, he was on her side, he was there for her, and nothing else mattered. "If you try to continue with this game, I'll make sure you and your accomplices are exposed," Michael finished, knowing his words could have repercussions, but not caring. He needed to stand firm. Bruna remained silent for a moment, her expression shifting as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Michael noticed that those around the table were starting to look at her with disapproval. He knew she had lost the support she once had. "I'm not afraid of you, Michael," she said, though her bravado was now merely a facade. "But you'll regret this." "I don't regret fighting for the truth," Michael replied, turning to leave the table, his heart pounding in his chest. He made his way back to the backstage area, where Edward was waiting for him. His friend looked at him with a proud but worried smile. "What are you going to do now?" Edward asked. "Now, we need to protect Isabella. She deserves to know that everything that's happened to her so far has been for the right reasons, and I'm here to support her, no matter what." Isabella walked onto the stage with renewed confidence, her gaze focused and determined. The audience was silent, expectant, as she prepared to answer the judge's question, a crucial moment that could change her life forever. Michael watched from his seat, his heart racing, hoping that she could show everyone who she truly was. The judges, composed of businessmen and influential figures, began asking their questions. The first was directed at Bruna, who, although still trying to regain control after Michael's confrontation, maintained her confident posture. "Bruna, you're an ambitious woman. What would you do with the prize if you won?" one of the judges asked, his evaluative gaze fixed on her. "I would use it to expand my career and help people who want to grow in life. Opportunities are precious, and I would like to create a space where other women can thrive, just like I have." Her response was rehearsed, filled with cliches that sounded empty. Michael frowned. He knew Bruna had other plans, that her speech was just a facade. But then it was Isabella's turn, and the tension in the air was palpable. The judge, a well-known businessman, looked at her with interest. "Isabella, you've stood out for your character throughout the competition. What is your personal motivation for participating in this event?" Isabella took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and powerful. "I'm here because I want to change my mother's life. She's sick, and this competition is an opportunity for me. But more than that, I want to use my voice to inspire others to be authentic and fight for their causes. The world needs more sincerity and less superficiality." Michael smiled, feeling immense pride in her. Isabella's sincerity touched the audience, who began to applaud enthusiastically. He saw the judges exchanging impressed glances. However, before the final question could be asked, something unexpected happened. Bruna, realizing that she was losing the audience's attention, quickly stood up. "Wait!" she exclaimed, her sharp voice cutting through the air. "I have something important to reveal about the competition." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Bruna. Michael felt a chill in his stomach. What was she about to say that could destabilize everything? Everyone here knows about the beggar working as a volunteer, Bruna began, her gaze provocative. Okay, but what few people know is that this beggar is actually the billionaire Michael Walker, the owner of this resort. A murmur spread through the audience, and Michael felt as though the ground had disappeared from beneath his feet. He realized that what should have been a moment of truth had now become a weapon in Bruna's hands. He's been here to observe and manipulate the situation while trying to find the woman who really interested him, Bruna continued, with a smug smile. That's what this competition has become. A game. And who would want someone who starts a relationship with lies? Isabella looked at Michael, her eyes full of confusion and pain. He knew the revelation was explosive, but he hadn't expected Bruna to use it as a weapon against him and the truth he was trying to protect. You may not care what others think, Bruna, Michael responded, trying to stay calm. But I'm not here to manipulate or play games. I'm here because I wanted to find someone who saw me for who I am. And do you think that makes a difference now? Bruna shot back, her expression triumphant. Everyone here can see that your idea of true love was just a farce. The tension in the room heightened, and Michael knew he had to act quickly. He couldn't let the competition turn into a battlefield of egos and manipulation. With a determined gesture, he stepped onto the stage, ignoring the voices trying to stop him. Hold on, Bruna, he said, facing her. If you want this to become a game, then I'll play, but by my rules. The judges and the audience watched in anticipation. I'm not a perfect man, and I'm not naive. I came here seeking something many of you don't understand. The search for authenticity in a world full of lies. And the truth is, during this time, I connected with someone who represents everything I've always wanted, Isabella. He turned to her, his eyes full of sincerity. I know the truth may have hurt you, but the only thing I want is to be honest with you and with everyone here. Michael turned to the audience. Isabella is the only one who treated everyone with respect and dignity, even while I was disguised. She is the true winner of this competition. The room fell silent, and then applause began to build slowly. Michael looked at Isabella, who stood frozen, but gradually a smile appeared on her face. He felt that, despite everything, she was beginning to see the truth in his words. I don't want you to feel belittled or manipulated because of what was revealed. What happened here should be a lesson for all of us about the importance of being authentic. And if I may, I want to do this with you by my side. He paused, looking into her eyes. You made me believe in true love, and I want you to know that it was never a lie. The applause grew louder, and Michael felt a wave of emotion as he realized that the audience was supporting his statement. He had chosen the hardest path, but he felt that he had done the right thing. Bruna, now visibly angry, tried to intervene, but the audience's murmurs silenced her. The atmosphere had shifted, and people were beginning to turn against her, realizing how much her ambition had overshadowed the event's purpose. Isabella, with tears in her eyes, finally walked toward Michael. He held out his hand, and she took it, feeling that the connection they had built was real. You really care about me, don't you? She asked, her voice trembling. So I've never stopped caring, Isabella, and if there's anything I can do to fix this, I'm willing to fight for you. Bruna, realizing that she had lost control, retreated, and the competition began to fall apart. The true essence of the pageant, which should have been about authenticity and empathy, was finally resurfacing. In the end, the judges' vote resulted in a tie, but what mattered most to Michael and Isabella wasn't the crown or the trophy. It was the connection they had forged amidst so many lies. True love wasn't a competition, it was a choice. Michael and Isabella walked off the stage hand in hand, both knowing that the journey had only just begun. True love cannot be bought, and now more than ever, they were determined to explore it together without disguises, just with authenticity. And so the competition didn't end with the crowning of a winner, but with a valuable lesson for everyone. True beauty lies in honesty and the courage to be who we really are. If you liked the story, consider subscribing to our channel and supporting us through the thanks button. See you next time.